So let's just show the TempDB Allocation History
Okay.
Report. If we've got a good database or a good server that's going to show some interesting data there.
Yeah, I
The
don't
problem
know.
is with TempDB is that this report is really valuable on production servers that have real workload, but here, being a test server, doesn't get quite as interesting as a real production server. You want to tell us about this one?
So we created this 2 months ago, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the open transactions and TempDB report, because we've started to run into RCSI becoming more prevalent. We've started to run into more TempDB balancing with clients. It needs a bit more focus as that becomes a more in use option for SQL versions popular now.
Just to jump in on that, for RCSI, that would be read committed snapshot isolation level. And if you're not familiar with that, we did a podcast earlier in the year. And hopefully when we get this edited, we'll have a little display here of what that podcast link is. But there was another podcast earlier in the year that talks all about RCSI in order to use it to prevent blocking. But the side effect is there's a lot more load on TempDB. So back to you, Mitch.
Right. And I don't want to say RCSI is a bad feature. In fact, we prefer it 99% of the time and recommend it for pretty much every. But with it comes a downside of if you leave an open transaction running and then you try and run other things against that open transaction or the same database or table that transaction is running against, you can cause some extreme bloating in TempDB, in the version store specifically, where we've seen TempDB explode. Clients haven't noticed it in the past, or it's caused it to fill out an entire drive. So this allocation is to help better balance TempDB and figure out what is going on, whether it's an open transaction and RCSI causing it, or possible large queries that are using user objects and temporary tables and whatnot. So it's a bit of a balancing game.
And what we ran into when you use the term blowing up TempDB, well, we had one client we were working with that actually had a 4 terabyte TempDB on a system where all the other databases weren't even anywhere near 4 terabytes. So, and that was because of RCSI and an open transaction. And we did a bit of digging in to find out why it was so big, and we were able to find out that it was the version store. And had we had this chart at the time that occurred, I would have just looked at the chart and seen, oh, gee, the whole chart is all green, which is the version store. Therefore, we know it's RCSI related. Now, that kind of leads us into the open transactions instance report that we already looked at when we looked at how do we kill sessions. But if you were having that kind of issue, typically what you're going to see if RCSI is bloating TempDB is that this is going to be an up and to the right chart, which when you're looking at sales numbers is a great thing. But when you're looking at TempDB size is a really bad thing that gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time. And you're going to see open transactions that are typically going to show up in that open transaction report, indicating that we've got something there that's keeping that version store around rather than letting it clean up over time. Thanks for watching. I'm Steve, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you like it, please click the thumbs up icon. And if you want to subscribe, click subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon to get notified when we have new videos. All right, have a great day.